Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. I am here in a hotel in Nashville. I'm traveling for work, and so here we are. I want to talk a little bit more about Weber today. Um, so keep in mind we've been talking about the Holy Trinity of sociology theory, which is Marx, Durkheim, Weber, and the Holy Trinity of sociology theories, which is conflict, which goes with Marx, functionalism, which goes with Durkheim, and symbolic interaction, which we'll talk about later, but does not go with Weber. So, what then might actually be a overarching theme for Weber if it's not something like the other ones? And so, the answer for this is rationality, in short. When Weber looked at industrial capitalism, same as Marx, same as Durkheim, he sees rationality coming into all human affairs, and that's okay. So rationality. So what do we mean by rationality? Well, it's a word we use a lot, but when you delve into it, the best way to think about it is rationality means the most efficient way to achieve an end. And by most efficient, we mean how do we get the end with the least cost and the least waste, right? So, now, all right. So yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'm thinking, and I don't want to edit these because then I'll never get them done. So just gonna have to roll with the blank spots. Now, when he looks at rationality, to be fair, he talks about several different kinds of rationality, but we'll just talk about the one that I just mentioned now, instrumental rationality, where that's which I just defined. So when he looks at industrial capitalism, what he sees is that kind of rationality affecting everything in the economy. And why not? We want the most. Of whatever we can get for the least cost, and generally that's a good thing. Everybody understands it. If you only have 5 acres of land to grow something on, wouldn't you rather get food for 10 people instead of 5 people if you could? If you were only going to get 5 people's food, would you want to get it with a whole year's worth of work or 6 months worth of work? And the answer is always going to be, I want as much food as I can get with as little work as I can get. When you go to buy a car, you want it for most of the time you want it for as cheap as you can get it. And in order to make money, the car makers want to charge what you're willing to pay, but they want to do it on their own end. They want to spend as little as possible to make a good enough car to get you to pay that amount of money. And so that's rationality, and that's rationality in the economy. Weber saw this elsewhere too, and perhaps maybe even more important, because he saw rationality also in human affairs. For him, that would be bureaucracy. By human affairs, I mean social organization. Rationality in social organization would be bureaucracy. And as much as we complain about red tape and we complain about bureaucracy, can you imagine getting the entire state of California driver's licenses without an effective bureaucracy? No, it couldn't happen. So the root word of bureaucracy is bureau, which is French for office. And in a bureaucracy, essentially what you're doing is you're breaking all of the different elements of a social system into discrete components, offices, and in those offices, people can come in, do the role, but then they can go out and you can bring someone else in to do the role, and it works. It works just fine. Another key component to bureaucracies is taking records, and you just don't have good bureaucracies without good record keeping. Of course, in our world, those records tend to be digital, living in databases, but 100 years ago, those records were on paper, in files, in offices, and those records, and if you go back 400 years ago, the records would have been kept in logbooks, but there always would have been records. And what that does is, like I said, that means that, as long as someone can come in, learn a job in that office, do that job, and then they can leave, and somebody else comes in, then, that's a bureaucracy. There are policies and procedures and rules that go with all of it, and those are also all recorded and written down. Someone who doesn't do the job well enough, you can kick them out because you got policies and procedures to do that. And there you go. Now, bureaucracies can be frustrating, but weirdly, when Weber talks about downsides, that's not what I get from him. It's not what people talk about. They don't talk about the stuff that popular folks do, that just regular people do. Let's see. Oh, all right. So step aside from bureaucracies, science. Duh. There's rationality as well. So what is science but the rational approach to knowledge? And similar to what I just described with the bureaucracy, science has procedures. There's a way to approach a problem. You walk in, you try and break a big problem down into component problems. You test it and see what works. Well, actually, if you recall one of the earlier videos, what doesn't work. So you test it, you test it, you test it, you test it, and you keep ruling things out till you get closer and closer to whatever the truth is. You have to keep good records in order for that to work. When it's done, or as you're going through this, you're putting out papers that are going into journals so everybody else can follow the records, can follow the process, and in this way, everybody's doing science the same way, and everybody's pursuing knowledge this way, and we've pushed knowledge in the last 400 years farther than, humans are something like 200,000 years old, and in 400 years we went from feudal and tribal societies to putting people on the moon. And why? Because we've got this rational methodological process to try and understand knowledge. If the trade-off in bureaucracies is frustration with having to follow a process, the trade-off in science is a little bit different. It's Weber ends up calling this disenchantment, but and it might be a little hard to put your finger on, but I think you can kind of get what I mean. We humans are meaning-making creatures. We tell stories. We have mythologies. We look for patterns. We're built to look for patterns, and so when our when our football team is playing, we wear our favorite jersey, hoping that somehow or other that's going to influence the outcome. Now, of course, we know that it really can't or shouldn't influence the outcome. I mean, that would be crazy, right? In a lot of ways, a pre-scientific understanding of the world, I think Weber would say, would feel more meaningful, and if not meaningful, definitely enchanted, right? In a pre-scientific world, that's a world that's full of spirits and unseen connections, and this may sound like I'm picking on religion, but you might pray to God, you might pray to your uncles, you might do some incantation. In a pre-scientific world, magic works. Harry Potter is the most widely selling children's novel. The Lord of the Rings has Gandalf floating around, and the Arthurian legends have that other wizard, Merlin, who's always going around. We like to live in a world that's a little bit magical, a little bit enchanted. And the scientific understanding of the world is more effective, but definitely less enchanted, right? When your friend gets cancer, you may offer some prayers, but you're gonna take him to the hospital. And if it's kind of wild. Even the stuff that we have. I'm sitting here talking to you, recording this on my phone. I can put on my little Bluetooth headphones here, which are hard to see, and I could have a conversation with my wife through the phone here, and walking down the street, and for all intents and purposes, I may as well be a raving lunatic talking to the voices in my head. How do you know what the difference is? Which is interesting, because that would look like magic to someone 50 years ago or 100 years ago, because they wouldn't have understood how we did it. But to someone 500 years ago, it would seem completely not understandable. So that enchanted world of unseen powers, of unseen forces, of connections, mythologies, that's just kind of gone. And sometimes I wonder if the moment we're in is full of all of these conspiracy theories, which is sort of like a response to that. It's I wonder if it's not people like looking for meaning where nowadays we don't have any, or looking for sources and process to explain things which just seem it's hard to accept that there's a lot of randomness in the world. It just is. Okay, so you have this disenchantment with the world, because we know so much about it, which is ironic, because in some ways it would seem, knowing about it is good. I think I like knowing about it. I like knowing that the rain comes from clouds and not from the water spirits, just all the way through. But that's disconcerting, as Weber would say, because we are this myth-making, meaning-making species, this group of humans that that's what we thrive on, and that's what we're actually taking away. And so we can live in a world that's more prosperous, that's healthier, that's less hopefully prone to famine, and end up being a little bit less happy about it. That's the disenchantment. And there's another layer, and this really isn't Weber, I don't think, but it does. It is about rationality, and it does matter when we get closer to the end of the semester and talk a little bit about postmodernism. But rationality can absolutely 100% go off the rails. If we, like I said, it's, to be rational, you want to understand the most efficient way to achieve your ends, and you break a problem down to its component parts to try and understand it, to build it back up again. Well, without being, histrionic, once Hitler decided that the Jews were the problem, he very rationally tried to figure out the most efficient way to, exterminate, to propagate genocide, which is pretty bad, right? I mean, we can say that's bad, but it was rational. I grew up in the Cold War era. Nuclear war was just always in the back of your head. I kind of didn't think I would make it to 30. And while atomic power, both for power generation and for making bombs, is truly marvelous, and what an accomplishment, requiring the best science, the best social organization, all the different kinds of rationality we have, and then thinking about the game theory that goes along with two hegemonic powers, the US and the Soviet Union, with the ability to, blow each other completely off the map. Everybody in that environment acting rationally leads you to a world where the both powers have the ability to completely end life on the planet as we understand it, and the only thing keeping all of it together is the mutually assured destruction. That's every step in the road of that is rational. We want to protect ourselves. Very often, the best defense is to have a very strong offense, so we're going to make the best weapons we can. We're going to use all the best science we can to make the best weapons we can. We know that the Soviets have these, so we have to be at least on par with them, if not ahead of them. And now the end result of all of this is we've gotten to a place in the world where we could absolutely end life. There we go. That's crazy, right? It doesn't really seem rational, but it often is. And it's interesting to think, how often problems that we see in the world, in society, are a result of people behaving rationally, or even behaving sensibly, let's use that, in their particular spot. But everybody behaving sensibly comes out with this untoward outcome that we weren't hoping for. There's one more element of, here we go, the other one more component of this that goes along with the postmodern thing, which we'll talk about later, is very often the way that we approach a question rationally and efficiently is we, like I said, we break it down into smaller and smaller component pieces. Well, that's so built in that it's a little bit of a challenge for us to think at the larger level. So when you think of economic problems or ecologic problems, those are problems that are not those are problems where you have to like back out and see the how all the different parts of the system work together to understand what it is. And we're not as good at that. We're better at breaking it down than we are in backing out and looking at the whole thing. But in sociology, what we're interested in is, how does the system work? You move something here and something changes over here. And you really only see that, well, not only, maybe only, I don't know. You really see that by looking at the ecological or the economic or the eco whatever level, and that's a less common way to understand science and social problems. It's a little less likely. There's one more element of this. I think there's a train going by. Yes. There's one more element of this that I was thinking of, and now it's escaping me. Disenchantment, rationality, nuclear war, ecology, crap. All right. Maybe it'll come to me. The reason that I'm taking the sidetrack on the economy, ecology, and negative outcomes of approaching something rationally, even though that doesn't go with Weber, is because by the time we get to the 80s and 90s, although there's an undercurrent all the way through, there's a pushback against a rational understanding of the world. And the for social theory, we would call him a neo-Weberian. George Ritzer is trying to understand rationality, and he's writing like I said, around 2000. So the postmodernists are 80s and maybe 70s as an art movement. It's before that, but like say the 80s and 90s. Ritzer's writing about it in the 2000s, and he's really revisiting stuff from Weber 100 years later. And the postmodernists are thinking about rationality as a whole, and so Weber matters there too. They're fun, but they get their own whole session. Okay, so rationality is good. It can lead to negative outcomes. Sometimes we rely on rationality for our modern scientific, economic, and social world. But we know that sometimes it can rob us of meaning and enchantment. Okay, there we go. So there's one other, I don't know, problem, but there's one more idea that Weber has, which is kind of intriguing to think about, and that is he's got this idea called the iron cage of rationality. And essentially, what that means is we build these rational systems so that so that we can do more, and as we do more, we also that means we get more capacity, and so our world, our population, our economy, our whatever, grows to fill in that more capacity, and then we're kind of stuck in that rational world, right? We're on that path because you can't back up, right? So very, very, just in the rawest, most blunt terms, in the 70s, you had this agricultural revolution, which was very heavily reliant upon herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, and gene edited. That's stupid. Genetically modified. Hybridized seed, like corn and stuff, like Roundup Ready corn, for instance. And as you do that, as that works, the yields just exploded, which was great for people who was great for all sorts of things. The farmers, they make more money. The chemical companies, they make money. We can feed more people, so fewer people are hungry. But then what ends up happening is the population grows, and I wonder what the population was in 1970, but I want to say it's probably closer to 6 or 6.5 billion. Now we're at 8 billion people. If something about our very rational industrial agriculture system doesn't work, or if we simply say we want the world to go organic, then what does that actually mean? Well, it means that the population has to shrink, and that's all there is to it. We're kind of stuck this way. In a theme throughout all of these social theorists is industrial capitalism. Well, industrial capitalism, in 1880 whatever, the Pennsylvania guy, I want to say Colonel Drake, I think, found oil in the Middle East, in Pennsylvania, and tapped a well, and started the oil boom of the world that we live in now. So, and we've got serious climate problems, and we know that comes from burning fossil fuels like oil and coal. So if we said we want to stop burning oil and coal, how do we roll that back, right? We're in that world, that rationality of science, rationality of the economy, rationality of social organization has built for us. In that world, how do we roll that backwards if we want to do something different? And the answer is not easily. There aren't easy solutions to the climate problem. There aren't easy solutions to agriculture. There aren't easy solutions to any of this stuff. And I've kind of wondered for a long time what happens and so thinking about some of our conversations from Durkheim a little while back, and the division of labor, right? How finely, how differentiated is your economy. I've wondered for a long time, what happens when, or is it even possible to, roll back that level of development? Can an economy simplify? And the answer may be, as Weber said, that no, it cannot. We are in an iron cage, and the only option is something more akin to collapse. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I don't know that it's not true. And you get very, very close to some of the conspiracy folks that I've mentioned a few times. But I don't know. It's worth thinking about. It is worth thinking about. All right, so there we go, Weber. We got, and now my computer locked up. We got rationality in science, rationality in social organization, that's bureaucracy, rationality in the economy, that's industrial capitalism. We've got the iron cage, which means we go down that path, it helps us thrive, our population, our economy grows to that level, and then we're stuck at that level. We can't go backwards. We've got disenchantment. Okay. And I gave a hint at some of the elements that we'll be taking into postmodernism. Okay, so I think that that's good enough for today. I may have to, I don't know, I will think. Maybe I'll do another, maybe I'll go actually do the work I'm here for. All right, thanks all.